I used to believe that ordinary days were the safest. The mornings when Clara hummed softly in the kitchen, when Emily argued with Jacob about who got the bigger slice of toast, when Sophie toddled in with her hair tangled from sleep, those mornings felt eternal. I thought routine was a fortress. I thought love was a shield. But routine is fragile. Love can be betrayed, and fortresses can collapse from within. I remember the way Clara's hair caught the sunlight as she leaned over the sink. I remember the way she laughed at Jacob's clumsy jokes, the way she kissed Sophie's forehead with absent tenderness. I remember believing, foolishly, that her heart belonged entirely to me. I was wrong. The first crack appeared so small I almost ignored it. A message on her phone, a smile she tried to hide. I told myself it was nothing. Husbands do that. We convince ourselves that shadows are harmless, that silence is just fatigue. But silence can be a scream if you listen closely enough. That night, lying beside her, I felt the distance. Her body was near, but her soul was elsewhere. And I, blind with trust, didn't know yet that she had already begun to drift toward someone else. I tried to hold on to the ordinary. I clung to the laughter of the children, the smell of coffee, the sound of Clara's footsteps. But beneath it all, something was shifting, something I couldn't name yet, but would soon destroy everything I thought was unshakable. It was a Sunday afternoon when Clara mentioned his name, Michael. I hadn't heard it in years, a ghost from her childhood, suddenly resurrected in casual conversation. She said it lightly, as if it meant nothing. "I ran into Michael today. Do you remember him?" Of course I remembered. He was the boy who used to walk her home from school, the one who carved their initials into a tree behind the playground. I had always thought of him as a harmless memory, a faded photograph tucked away in the attic of her past. But when she spoke his name, her eyes lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. I told myself it was nothing. People reconnect all the time, old friends resurface, but something in her tone unsettled me, a softness, a warmth that wasn't meant for me. That evening, Clara was distracted. She laughed at her phone, typed quickly, hid the screen when I walked into the room. I tried to ignore it, tried to convince myself it was work or a friend from the children's school. But the name echoed in my mind. Michael. Days passed and his presence grew. She mentioned him more often, always casually, always with that same spark in her eyes. Michael said this. Michael remembers that. I began to feel like an intruder in my own home. One night, as I tucked Sophie into bed, I heard Clara in the hallway whispering into her phone. Her voice was soft, intimate, the kind of tone she used to reserve for me. I froze, listening, my heart pounding. I didn't catch the words, but I caught the laughter, and that laughter cut deeper than any blade. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to demand the truth, but fear held me back. Fear of what I might hear, fear of the collapse I already sensed. Instead, I swallowed the suspicion. I kissed Sophie's forehead, whispered goodnight, and pretended everything was fine. But inside, I knew. A ghost had returned, and he was stealing my wife away from me. I used to believe that betrayal would announce itself with thunder, a dramatic revelation, a sudden collapse. But in reality, it arrives quietly, like a shadow slipping under the door. Clara's absences grew longer. She said she was meeting friends, helping at school, running errands, but her explanations were thin, fragile things that dissolved when I touched them. One evening, I came home early from work. The house was quiet, the children scattered in their rooms. Clara wasn't there. I checked the clock. She should have been home hours ago. I called her phone. No answer. When she finally walked through the door, her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly disheveled. She smiled too quickly, kissed me too lightly. "Traffic," she said. But I knew. I didn't have proof, but I knew. The children noticed too. Emily asked me once, her voice trembling, "Dad, why does Mom leave so much now?" I wanted to protect her, to shield her from the truth. But how do you shield a child from the silence that fills a home? At night, Clara turned away from me in bed. Her body was near, but her soul was elsewhere. And I, blind with trust, didn't know yet that she had already begun to drift toward someone else. I tried to hold on to confront her, one-eyed. My voice shook as I asked, "Are you seeing him?" She froze, then laughed, a hollow, defensive laugh. "Daniel, don't be ridiculous." But her eyes betrayed her. Eyes don't lie. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, to tear the mask away. But the children were asleep down the hall. Emily, Jacob, Sophie, innocent, fragile, unaware. I couldn't shatter their world with mine. So I swallowed the rage, the suspicion, the grief. And in that silence, betrayal grew stronger. I had lived for weeks in suspicion, drowning in half-truths and shadows. But suspicion is a cruel companion. It whispers endlessly, yet never gives you peace. What I needed was proof. It came one evening, not with thunder, but with silence. Clara had left her phone on the counter. She never did that. She guarded it like a soldier guards a weapon. But that night, distracted by Sophie's cries, she forgot. I told myself not to look. I told myself I was better than that. But betrayal makes cowards of us all. My hands trembled as I picked it up, as if the device itself burned me. The screen lit up. A message. His name. Michael. "I miss you already. Tonight was perfect." The words stabbed me, each letter a blade. My chest tightened, my breath caught. I felt the world tilt beneath me. I put the phone down before she returned, but the damage was done. Proof, undeniable. My wife was gone, even as she stood in the same room. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her, listening to her steady breathing, wondering if she dreamed of Michael. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage, every promise, every laugh, all of it now tainted, poisoned. I wanted to confront her, to scream, to demand the truth, but the children slept down the hall. Emily, Jacob, Sophie, innocent, fragile, unaware. I couldn't shatter their world with mine. So I swallowed the rage. I buried the truth deep inside me, where it festered like rot. The next morning, Clara smiled at me, kissed my cheek, poured me coffee, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't betrayed me. And I, coward that I was, played along. I smiled back. I drank the coffee. I pretended. But inside, I was already breaking. I couldn't keep silent forever. Proof burned inside me like fire, and silence only fed the flames. One evening, after the children had gone to bed, I stood in the kitchen watching Clara wash the dishes. The sound of water running, plates clinking, her humming, all of it felt unbearably ordinary, and yet nothing was ordinary anymore. "Clara," I said, my voice low, steady, "where were you tonight?" She froze for a moment, then answered too quickly, "At the store. We needed milk." I looked at the counter. The milk was already there, unopened, bought days ago. "Don't lie to me," I whispered. Her shoulders stiffened. She turned, her eyes flashing with anger, or maybe fear.
"Daniel, stop this. You're imagining things." But I wasn't imagining. I had seen the message. I had heard the laughter. I had felt the distance. "You're seeing him," I said. The words tasted like poison. "Michael." Her face changed, a flicker of guilt, quickly masked by defiance. "He's just a friend. You're paranoid." I wanted to scream, to break something, to demand the truth until she shattered. But Sophie stirred in her room, her small voice calling out in sleep, and suddenly the rage collapsed into silence. I couldn't destroy the night for them, not yet. Instead, I walked away. I left Clara standing in the kitchen, her hands trembling, her eyes filled with something I couldn't read. The children felt the tension.